Hey, good morning. I know it's been quite a few days, been very busy with work. Today is my fourth day. I just got home. I haven't even had much time to shave. Worked through just about all of the holidays for the most part. And of course, today I did some overtime. I have another shift scheduled for overtime tonight, then back on my regular schedule for Wednesday, Thursday. So this is basically my fourth day of a 7 day in a row schedule. And it's mostly because, like I've previously said in my other videos, my goal is to live abroad. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on within the country, probably by now, hopefully, you've come to realize what's been going on between the rise of communism that is rearing its head into our government. And of course, that does not pair well with capitalism and, of course, the republic that which we currently live under at this time. Now, of course, I've posted numerous videos on uh, different medical related issues in terms of what has been going on my other YouTube channel. I have another smaller YouTube channel that previously I typically utilized for video games, as I was a big gamer myself, and then of course that shifted with the health crisis, and I wanted to be as factual as possible. So I always released a lot of content. Some content got removed. YouTube doesn't like when I spit out certain truths, regardless of how often I come very well equipped with receipts. This video is talking a little bit about, of course, my current changes for my portfolio, just talking about what I'm doing. As you can see, I currently have about 7,000 to sell. And of course, this is not because I've held these positions for so long and I think that they don't have any upward potential. From what I have read and from what is going on, in my opinion, I perceive that there will be a hard pullback, regardless of who comes into office. And so I'm kind of preparing myself a little bit financially for a hard pullback. As I said, my goal, of course, is to live abroad. This account is primarily designed around dividend passive income, right? That's typically where most of my stocks, and so I have a couple of stocks that I'm selling. Pfizer, if you've been paying attention to Pfizer, in terms of the efficacy, or I should say, in terms of the narrative of what's going on with the vaccine, like most people say, and like I always say, when things don't start to add up, start subtracting. And as you can see, we can basically see that Pfizer isn't exactly benefiting all that much from coming out with the vaccine. And like I say, follow the money. Same thing with Moderna. If you've been paying attention to Moderna, they've both pretty much look the exact same. Now, of course, these companies should be highly benefiting from the large amounts of doses that they should be selling. I'm just saying, especially for a stock like Pfizer, there's a lot of suspect things going on within the market. We saw quite a bit of a hard pullback yesterday. Some people might attribute it to perhaps individuals correcting or people selling off, for the beginning of the year and repositioning. Yesterday, I put out a post that individuals should not be shocked if they were, of course, I said, have some dry powder on the side. It says things could get real choppy real quick. Beware of automated sell-offs. A storm is brewing, but of course, like I said, with what I'm doing, I am preparing myself for the hard sell-off. And of course, I do also have a little bit in cash here, so that will give me around 85. I'm going to put in some more. I'm looking to put in at have about 10,000 or so. Probably by next week, to allocate into the market on a hard pullback. This is just my opinion. This is what I am doing, as I perceive that there will be a very hard pullback with the powers that be. We will see kind of like birth pangs as the baby gets closer and closer to being born, the contractions become stronger. And so this is just my particular belief from what I see with my own eyes, what I see in the hospital setting, what I see within the market, what I see within the political environment, that there will be, in my opinion, a hard pullback. There are two schools of thought in terms of how the government wants to be run by those in positions of power. And those two schools of thought, like oil and water, cannot mix. They cannot coincide. Eventually, everything will come to a boil, and primarily the people will suffer. How we Americans choose to either come together or continue to bicker to our own demise will be left up to the people. But as for me, I'm trying to do everything that I can, like I said, to eventually make my exit. Mostly because I perceive the instability of the current environment going on, and I'm trying to make plans to basically exit the country within, depending upon who gets into power, maybe sooner than later. Originally, my goal was to make it out within the next 4 years. If things change up, I perceive I may exit the country a little bit sooner than anticipated. And of course, which is why I'm doing a little bit more work, seeing a little bit more patients on the side, just basically trying to earn as much of a living as I can until basically I can't. There's a lot going on in terms of laws that are being snuck in, especially here in places like New York, where, if you haven't heard, Governor Cuomo is basically trying to pass a law where they would basically have medical detention camps. You can easily Google that on your own. I don't have to show you here. You can just Google Cuomo detention camps, and you'll basically see a plethora of different social media that are, of course, picking up on it. I saw this over the weekend when I was at the hospital, as I pay very close attention to things like this, especially because when it comes to things like communism, it typically rears its head very quickly and very violently, which is why you've seen so many small businesses basically be destroyed. And while many Americans, of course, are hoping for a check from the government, as you have noticed, they've basically given most people peanuts. While most people are suffering and going hungry, you've probably, if you have not already, seen the very long food lines that have been growing within different parts of the country, like in New York and in Texas and in New Jersey. These will continue. You've seen the exodus from many Democratic states, like, for example, California and New York, where people are basically seeking refuge. Even businesses are seeking refuge in more red states. And of course, in my opinion, this is unwise. Instead of rising up and taking back your country, many individuals are basically retreating into where they perceive to be safe havens. I perceive that to be a very foolish tactic, because just like in warfare, the more of the battle lines that you give the enemy, the more towns that are taken over, the more it emboldens your enemy to continue to push forward into new territories. And this is what I perceive that will happen. Many who are basically going into places like Nevada, Texas, and other areas, basically trying to find shelter from the storm that is coming. And I find that to be not what I particularly want to do. Although, if push comes to shove and that law does come into play, I myself will more than likely move to Florida temporarily, or make an early exit into Colombia and just do some travel nursing along with investing, as I do have my, I have my TD account, I have my Webull account, which I do swing trading, and then of course I have my M1, which is basically my dividend account. So we'll have to wait and see. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update. I'm probably going to watch the open a little bit. As I said, I've got a couple of thousand to go out, trying to lock in some of these profits. I could be wrong. I'd rather be safe than, of course, watch the stock market pull back very hard. If you haven't been paying attention, the more the current president tries to entrench himself, you've seen new information about the virus and new strains of the virus basically, of course, start in places like the UK. If you haven't been paying attention, the UK recently broke away from the EU, and just about the same time that a new strain comes out. And of course, as you see what's going on in America, we are also equally battling the virus, probably the hardest among the two nations, the UK and the United States are typically battling the virus a little bit harder than other nations. And I do not perceive this to be, you know, just for no reason. I believe that there is a reason, there is a narrative. Like I said, I've worked in the hospital for just about 10 years in healthcare, and I know what I see in the hospital setting. I know the type of patients I've come across. I also realize that the flu has basically disappeared in the entire country and no one talks about it. But everything is just particularly one dynamic. Even things like the common cold, pneumonia have just vanished from the hospital setting. And everything, for the most part, is just one particular thing. And so eventually all things come to light sooner than later. We'll have to wait and see. But this is just a quick little update. Went a little bit longer than I really wanted to, as I want to get prepared for the market. It's already about 10 to 9. But I hope things are going well. Happy belated Christmas. Hope you had a good New Year. And I would definitely say, whatever you're doing, be ready and be prepared, both financially, mentally, and spiritually, for the things that are to come. If you thought 2020 was difficult, 2021 will be considerably more difficult, and I advise you to be well prepared.